it's like I see a history and I see and I hate to single out people because there's so many people, and my partner, who's still my partner, he's retired, but he's still my partner, that I still send checks to every month, even though he doesn't do anything in the business, because I wouldn't be here without him and investing in the fortune management and all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of people along that way to get there, and I'm very thankful for all of them.
Hi, everyone. I think you're going to really love today's episode featuring Dr. Bob Martino. Dr. Martino is a serial entrepreneur that I think you're going to really enjoy hearing his stories. He's not only had been a dentist by trade, but he built successful businesses in different verticals completely outside of dentistry, including even aeronautics. I think for our entrepreneurial listeners today, you're going to really enjoy hearing about his mindsets, hearing about not having limiting beliefs, and some of his motivations along the way. I thought it was particularly funny when he talked about the government not being able to do a lot of things right, except he first realized when he was poor, his dad brought home government cheese, and he said that the government could do well. So it's lighthearted, but filled with tons of content today. I hope you really enjoyed today's episode with Dr. Bob Martino. Hi, everyone. I am so excited to have on our show today Dr. Bob Martino. Dr. Martino is a good friend of mine and a client, full disclosure. We also sit on some boards together. I think that Dr. Martino's background is really interesting for our entrepreneurial listeners today. For those who don't know Dr. Martino, he owns and operates 7 dental practices and has over 100 employees in West Virginia. He's also the CEO of Wilmar Management Company. Throughout his career, he's founded a worldwide aeronautics company. He's launched a company, a brand, and manufacture and sell OraCare, which is a dental oral rinse, also a telemedicine company, and has been involved in many entrepreneurial endeavors. I think it's really fascinating to see the success he's reached in completely different verticals, in some cases totally unrelated, in some cases related. So, Bob, welcome to the program.
Bill, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
No, we're glad to have you on. So what I'd like to do is just start. I think for our listeners, they'd love to hear a little bit about your entrepreneurial journey. Where did it start, and kind of walk us through where you are today and kind of how these different opportunities emerged throughout your business career.
Well, my story starts with pain, right? I had a lot of pain in my life, and I remember the day. It was December 31st, 2001. I had 3 dental practices at the time. I had a wife that was pregnant with twins, and a teenage daughter and a 9-month-old daughter. And we always take off between Christmas and New Year's. Still do to this day. And it was December 31st, and I had a party to go to. I was still at work. It was 6 o'clock at night. Everyone else in my organization was off that whole week. I had worked every day, including Christmas Day, including New Year's Eve. And I was thinking, and the payroll was due the next day. How am I going to get all this done and still go to the party, still not piss off my pregnant wife? And I said, something's got to change. And that's when I realized that I'm much more than a dentist. And some of that is like a good thing. Some of it, but some of it, like I was payroll guy, I was website designer, I was motivator, I was HR director, I was business developer, I was chief mail opener, everything on the list I was, babysitter, everything. And I said, wow, I went to dental school. What am I doing all this stuff? And I said, I'm so much more than a dentist. I'm all these other things. And then like it kind of hit me, and I said, I am so much more than a dentist. Hey, so what I really want to do, I said, I want to pick the 5 things that I really want to do. And the first one was, yeah, I want to be CEO. I like that part. You know, I wanted to be a leader, which I don't think I was being a great leader. I was a doer. And because I was seeing patients at the time and trying to run a business, you know, I wanted to be a husband and a father, which I think I wasn't doing a very good job of because of all the doing. I wanted to be a coach. I love sports. So I wanted to be a coach, specifically a basketball coach. And then what surprised me on that list, I surprised myself. I put entrepreneur, and I've never thought of that before. And I thought, I want to grow this thing. And I cannot handle anymore. I can't do it. Like, I haven't even enjoyed our time off. And so the one thing that wasn't on that list was be a dentist. And that's what I went to school for. And that's what it was a pain in the butt going through dental school. And so, but that didn't make my list. And so right then I decided I got to do something about that. If I want to do all these things that I want to do, I can't sit there and do patients. I can affect my businesses in other ways. And so I said, right then, and we had 3. We eventually expanded to 9. I sold a couple. My strategy was first with build them up, buy them low, build them up, and then sell them. Until I figured out, why do I sell it when I'm making income from these? I'll just keep them,
Right.
and so that's why we're at 7. We might be in expansion mode a little bit more this year, but that's kind of my story. That's why I became all these things, and fast forward, 20 some years later, and I am all the things that I set out to be for my organization, for my family, for my, I'm a high school basketball coach. And so it is, up to that day, there was no plan. There was like, I just acquired this office, and there was no path. But up to that day, I was just doing what was trying to survive.
Yeah. So it sounds like you made a distinction too, because most people would say, hey, Dr. Martino, when you had 3 practices, you were an entrepreneur. You owned 3 businesses, right?
I didn't
And
think I was.
yeah, and what I'm hearing kind of is, you know, kind of almost like a distinction between kind of owning a job versus owning and running a business. Because if you're the chief cook, bottle washer, and in this case, the caregiver and everything else, in your mind, yeah, I owned 3 businesses, but you really didn't feel like an entrepreneur at that moment.
I didn't own them. They owned me.
Yeah.
And they really did. They owned me. And I had to get control back. And that's why I say pain. I was in a lot of pain right then. And pain's what drove me to be a better CEO, be a better leader, look at this stuff a little bit different than, well, I'm a dentist that happens to own business. So I changed
Yeah.
that from I'm a business guy to that happens to be a dentist.
Yeah. So tell the listeners too now, and so you start building this successful business, right? You're an entrepreneur who happens to be a dentist, and you're building the enterprise, but then you end up in other businesses at the same time that you still own and operate today. Tell me, like, in the journey, how does that come about? How do you
So
go from building this enterprise to something totally different?
yeah, so today I'm in a hangar, right? That's where my offices are. And yesterday I was at NetJets, which is the world's largest airline. And so it was it has nothing to do differently than a mindset. And so back in 2001, when I was doing that, if this opportunity would have came up, there's no way I could have done it. There's no way I would have thought about it. So it's a mindset, because a lot of people ask me that, what does airplanes and dentistry have to do with each other? And there's a lot, believe it or not. But the first thing is the thought process of, yes, I can do this, and I see an opportunity there. And basically started as, had a person that was my tennis partner, and he was really good doubles partner, and he had to leave. And he said, unless we start this business together. And he goes, I know everything about airplanes, and I knew nothing about it. And he said, but I know nothing about business. I said, I know a little bit about business. And this is the time I've already made this decision. I'm running probably 5 or 6 practices at the time, and in that entrepreneur mode. And so, yeah, let's try it. And what I found out is that the businesses, and really all businesses, are very similar. You still got to take care of the end user. You got to give them a great experience. You got to communicate. So I'm at a meeting yesterday at NetJets, and the first thing out of their mouth is, you're so unique than any other of our maintenance people. You're the best communicators in any vendor that we have to, and they work with thousands of vendors. You're the best communicator. And, in my head, I'm thinking, that's no accident. I learned that through dentistry. I learned that through, management people that, what I would call consultants with Fortune Management that coached me, and that communication is the key. That is, and it's not just us talking, but us listening and finding out. And my first meeting at NetJets 15 years ago, the guy said, there's 476 maintenance companies ahead of you. He said, so I just want you to know what you're getting into. And I said, what are those not doing? So I asked the question, and I found out, like, what's your pain point? And that's a communication process. It's finding out what they needed. And they said, we need a company that can do airframe and avionics and engines, and can run taxi, because a lot of times we have to call 2 or 3 people to go out on the road to fix a plane. Well, we'd like to call one. And I said, so if we became that, you would call us? And he said, yes. So that was our goal. Find out what they wanted, and then provide it for us. And I'm happy to say, I'd love to take all the credit, but I have great partners in this business, and we are the #1 maintenance company they call when they have a problem. If they have an engine problem, we're the first one they call. And so we did meet that goal, but it all came from what I've learned early on in dentistry. So
yeah, it's interesting too, because at the end of the day, human relationships are human relationships, right? Like whether it's a marriage with people, or a partnership, or a customer, it's
all
communication. Yeah, and it is kind of fascinating. Similarly, I always ask people when we're trying to help someone, what's your ideal outcome? If you could have a blank piece of paper and write the script of how this would perfectly go, what does it look like?
Right.
And then once you hear it, you can try to deliver it, right?
Right. So many people don't want to ask that question, right? Like, I don't know whether they're afraid they underdeliver or whatever, but you got to find out what they want,
Yeah. Well, look, lawyers, of which I'm one, they are infamous for starting to tell people what they need before they've asked them what they want. Right?
Believe me, dentists are the same way, so
I always found that fascinating when I was starting to get clients of my own, and I'd hear other lawyers start to just tell people what they needed to do. And I thought to myself, they haven't even asked them yet what the ideal outcome looks like. What if the advice isn't even what they want? They haven't even asked yet. So it's kind of interesting.
It's not that hard, it's
no.
not that hard,
It seems like common sense, I guess maybe it's because, like, when I was a kid, I worked at like a deli making sandwiches, and you had to make sure you gave them what they wanted. So,
That's right.
So in addition to the aeronautics company, though, you also run and created and founded another business in Oracare. I mean, tell us, how did that come about?
Well, it, it, there's a product out in dentistry called chlorhexidine, and all of us dentists hate it. It stains the teeth. You can only use it for 2 weeks. Changes your taste. It tastes terrible, causes calculus, and every dentist in America uses it. And so me and a couple other dentists just got together, and actually Rick Downs was like what we always call the science guy of us. I said, as we were talking to him, we go, we should do something about this problem. Everyone hates it, and the only reason they use it, the only reason, is because that's what we used in school. And so we worked on a formula. We got some investors and worked on a formula, and came up with a formula that did the opposite of what chlorhexidine, which was great because we already had a roadmap. We had a roadmap. We knew what we wanted it to do. We wanted to kill bacteria, viruses, and fungus, but we also knew what we didn't want it to do. So we spent like over $1 million developing the right rinse for what we wanted and what we didn't want, and we came up with it. And then we're like, great, we have this product. And so we put an investor group. We hired a CEO, and the CEO was very important in the development of it. And he was a developer of other products, and so he was really good at that. But then we got to the point where we got a great product. Now we got to go sell it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where the challenges came in. And found out that the guy was great at developing the product. He wasn't very good at selling the product. And so after 2 years of losing money every month, and we're losing $40,000 this month, and you're just trying to keep your head above water. And of course, I was always just giving advice. I was never like really in. The board finally came together and said, we got to do something different, and we've got to let him go. And which was a tough, because we all liked him, nicest guy.
Yeah.
But that's what we did. And so then we were trying to figure out, and this was probably about 11 years ago. And they asked me, they said, would you be the interim CEO and to get this thing running until we can find a CEO? And 11 years later, I still am the interim CEO.
That's quite an interim.
Yeah, I don't
quite
know
an interim period.
Yeah, I don't know if I ever been named that. And so here's the thing. So how did that, and it is very successful, profitable. We're starting to go into Europe, and
That's great.
we have millions of people that use it, and so when people ask me well, what did you do right? What do you know? I say I do two things well. A lot of things I do bad, but I do two things really well. I build good teams, and I guess three, because I build good teams and then I let them do what they need to do. I'm still involved, but I give them responsibilities. I'm really good at that for some reason, picking out talent. And then the second thing is I'm really good at making decisions. Now, I didn't say good decisions. I'm just good at making them. Sometimes they're horrible decisions, but I'm not a wishy-washy. We're not thinking on it for weeks. Let's make the decision, and we're going to learn about something. So those are two things. I'm all day. That's what I'm doing, is making decisions. I mean, today was just one of those days. I mean, it must have been 2, 300 decisions I made. And some of them are as simple as what we're having for lunch, and some of them are major things that are made that are going on. And 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 it's like this. Let's go. Let's do it. Because if I sit there and analyze, I don't think I get any better. And I think I can only get so I try to get all the information, but the more information that we get by actually doing something, I think that's the problem with entrepreneurs and any business owners. I don't I think we think a lot, I think we talk a lot, I think we plan a lot, but we don't always do a lot. In other words, there's the planning stage, there's the thought process, there's the creative stage, but at some point, we have to get to the actual doing stage so we learn where to go. And I think, like I said, I think that's what we do well at.
Yeah. Well, let me shift gears on you a little bit. One of the things that's always struck me in my business as an attorney for closely held businesses and entrepreneurs, when people have reached a very high level of success and they reflect on it, probably while they're going through it, they don't even think about it. But when they reflect on it, sometimes there's one or two overarching guiding principles that they think about and say, this is a common guiding principle that I have had, whether I knew it at the time or not. And it's kind of woven through all my various success stories. Do you have any of those that you could share with our entrepreneurs that you think?
Yeah, I have one it's kind of weird. It's not like who we are. It's just a motivation. And it's a motivation that it keeps me going. And it's I call it the $70,000 motivation. And so when I was in dental school, and I went to dental school at WVU, West Virginia University, and I work in West Virginia, and I lived here all my life. And I was sitting beside a guy right next to me, and he says to me, "I know what you're going to do when you get out of dental school." And I said, "Oh, really? What's that?" Because I really hadn't had that planned in my mind yet. And he said, "You're going to go back to your hometown." And he says, "You're going to make $70,000. You're going to be happy, and that's where you're going to be." He said, "You're not going to," basically saying you're going to do West Virginia dentistry. That's that's where. And so, well, by golly, that motivated, because I was going back to my hometown, and I did.
He kind of called you out, is what you're
Called
saying?
me out on that, and I was. But the first year that I did 70,000, I thought of him. I go, okay, okay. And then the first quarter we did 70,000. I thought, okay. Now what's the next? Then the first month that we did 70,000, I'm thinking, okay, John, I'm hitting it. John's his name. And okay, you're motivating me. And then I remember the first day that we did 70,000.
Wow. Yeah.
And then, and then you want to do that consistently. And then, we've actually, with all my businesses, we've had a day where 1 hour, every hour on the day, we average 70,000. Now we're not even close to ever doing that on a consistent basis, but it's a motivating factor for me. Like, it's like, it's like the 70,000 motivate. And it's like, okay, don't doubt me, because that gives me a motivation. And it was always that. I can remember it yet, like it was yesterday, him telling me that, and almost kind of like, "I'm going to pigeonhole you, and you'll never do anything really great." And the problem is, I believe that a little bit too. I'm like, "Oh, geez, what if he's right?" and everything. So I think I use that, because I have a lot of people ask me, like, when are you going to retire? And I'm like, never. Like, I enjoy what I do. I love this. It's a motivating factor, but I think you need that. I think some people need that motivation in their lives, and that it's a shame that that comment fueled me for so long. But it sometimes you got to pick what motivates you, and that was one thing that really motivated me.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like a mindset, like, to defy the naysayers or the negatives. I remember when I first thought I wanted to be a lawyer, I had a friend of mine, and I had said, I think I want to be a lawyer at a big worldwide New York City, Wall Street law firm. And he said, "You'll never get that job." And I said, "What do you mean I'll never get that job? Like that's what I want to do." And he's like, "Well, to do that, you're going to have to go to like a top 10 law school, Ivy League or something similar, and then you're going to have to be lucky enough to get in interviews, and then and then and then." And I had
Yes.
that chip on my shoulder from the first day of school, and and I got into UVA, which is the sixth ranked law school or whatever in the country, and got the interviews and
Yeah.
got that job, and I used that as motivation, all the way through. And I made it a point, you know, couldn't resist. Maybe at some point along the way when I saw him, he mentioned, "Oh, it's
Yes.
really great." I'll say, "Yeah, you remember when you told me that I'd never be able to do that?"
Yeah.
So the irony is I ended up hating that job. and, and and thank God I ended up at my current firm, and I've been here
Yeah,
now for
yeah, yeah, yeah.
24 years, and it was the worst job ever, but I got it.
And
So
I think there's a lot of people along the way that were encouraging, but it's the one that doubted you that stands out that you go, I want. And even though, like, I've never had a conversation with him about this. He was his idea. He was going to this big city, and he's actually still in West Virginia. A single
in his
guy.
hometown.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it was funny, but the idea is I needed someone maybe to doubt me as much as I needed people to encourage me to go forward.
Yeah, it's funny. It's a lot like sports too, like great coaches find ways to motivate
That's
people.
right.
Bill
That's
Bill
exactly
Parcells used to talk about that, some players needed a kick in the rear end.
right.
Some needed to hear, "I'm really disappointed. I
Yeah,
thought that you would have this ability, but maybe I was wrong." And
yeah.
he said he motivated everybody differently, right?
Right.
So,
Right.
all right, so let me ask you this question. What would, for lack of a better description, what would, Dr. Bob Martino today tell Dr. Bob Martino maybe 10, 15, 20 years ago in terms of pitfalls, blind spots, the things you wish you didn't do, or the things you learned that, you didn't see coming that you would tell an entrepreneur today, you know, here's what you don't want to do, because nobody gets to where they are without having some pitfalls and issues along the way.
I think the biggest thing is get out of your own way. I mean, I think that I don't know, for years we'd have a great year and I'd worry about the next year. Like, we can't have that good a year, and it was always the worry about, can I keep this going? And I think trust in yourself. I think that's I have a story, and it's up in my office. Long time ago, I had an idea, entrepreneurial idea, about having a gas truck to go around, and because I'd work with all the people that I would work with, they would always be on E, and I didn't go to the gas, and I asked them, I said, if a gas truck can come in here, even if it was a little bit more expensive, would you fill up? Oh, yes, yes, I'd have them fill it. I'm like, maybe they would change your oil. Yeah, I would do that and everything. So I had this idea. Okay. So I remember it was Christmas. I mean, I don't know what, maybe I'm having trouble with Christmas, because, the holidays, but all my family was over, especially my wife's family and everything. And, I was relatively successful at the time, but nothing where I'm, at nowadays. And so I was a little nervous to tell them about this idea. And I said, I got this idea about this gas truck. Instead of having a gas station, why don't we bring the gas to them and we could go around and it'd be like an Uber, like, you would just order it and you could see the truck and, and this was before Uber, so I didn't call it Uber, and they laughed at me so hard. And they just, they were laughing like, that's so stupid. And they were, and I mean, to this day, you know what I mean? Until I'm in a hotel somewhere, going to a convention, and I get the USA Today, I open up to the business page, and the front page of it is talking about the new wave of having gas trucks, and it's in California and everything like this. And I went, son of a, I did not believe in myself enough to fight for that. And I let people laugh at me, and that motivated that. Like, it didn't motivate me. It just shut me down. Like, wow, that must be a really stupid idea. And everything, even I knew it wasn't, even though I knew in my heart that I would use it. You know what I mean? I know all my staff would use it. You know what I
Yep.
mean? And so I think so, and that's what I have on the sign. I have that article, and as I walk out the door, it says, "Believe in yourself and not what other people thinks." And I think that's the biggest advice that I can,
Yeah.
offer an entrepreneur.
Yeah. So what you're really saying is the pitfall to avoid is having limiting beliefs, right? Don't have limiting beliefs.
And you may not have, but you have that trusted inner circle, or and you're eventually, when you have an idea, you have to tell someone for it to become, and you hope it's the people that will support you and not laugh at you, but tell you the truth too. You want to know, hey, that's a really, yeah, or play devil's advocate or whatever.
Sure.
But so it's not only your limited beliefs, but it's also the limited beliefs of your inner circle, of the people that you trust, and you want people, you don't want yes people, but you want people to tell the truth for you, but also support you in that. I'm not going to make fun of you, and I'm not going to laugh at you, and I'm not going to make you feel so bad because that discourages creativity, and we got to watch that as entrepreneurs.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting too. I always found too, like in my profession, I think lawyers in general are worriers, or there's a little bit of negativity that kind of comes with the package. And I've always been super upbeat and positive, and
Yeah.
think about a growth mindset. And it's amazing, like how, when you finish a fiscal year in professional, not just lawyers, professional services, you get to December 31, and January 1st, you got to start all over again, right? Start with
It
zero.
starts right again. That's right.
Start with zero in every column, and there's no necessarily repeat business or whatever. You got to recreate it all over again. And I've always looked at it as, an opportunity to grow. Or if people are worried about the economy, with crisis comes opportunity,
Right.
but there's a lot of people out there who will be like, oh, the economy is not going to be good. Oh, last year was such a good year. How do you repeat last year? And they'll bring you right down. They'll bring you right down.
I think the thing about December 31st is, and maybe January 1st, you get to look back and say, oh, what a great year I had. But then January 2nd, you're going to the next year. And I think early on, that's what bothered me the most, is that, instead of looking at it as, like you said, as an opportunity or something, I was looking at it, oh, I got to do this all over again. You know what I mean? And I don't even, it's so easy to go, like, celebrate. We don't celebrate the wins as much as we should. You had a great year, and you get to celebrate it for maybe a day, and then you're back into the grind. But if you had a bad year, you'd be all January, we'd be trying to figure out what did we do wrong, and I think we don't celebrate the wins as much. It's like that. You worry more about the losses than celebrating the wins.
I think that is such a great point because, and I think it's a common thread too, when people have achieved a lot of success and they're scoring wins a lot, it's in a way they almost kind of get in an unfortunate way, right? You can kind of get numb to the wins, and to your point, not celebrate. I remember my father used to say to me, he said, you when you have a big deal or something goes great or you have some kind of achievement or success, he used to say, take a breath, enjoy, think about it, reflect on it, enjoy it. Maybe, don't be irresponsible, maybe treat yourself to something. And maybe more importantly, whoever your significant other or loved one or whatever is, treat them to something,
Yeah,
because they're not only along for the journey with you, but they're making sacrifices so that
right.
are able to do what you do. And I think that that's kind of an interesting thing.
Hey,
So,
listen, that is some great advice right there. That is great advice because I think we all could use that more. Now, listen, we need wins, right? You know what I mean? And
sure.
and we've all had challenges and everything. And I always say success, what success I've had, lets me fail. So there's some things that I would not try if I wasn't successful. So, not only should we celebrate it, but it also gives us freedom that I don't think we all realize that, we can take a chance. We can, maybe this can go in a hole and maybe, and so I think success lets you fail. And I know for me, I always like, okay, well, let's try this. It's not going to be the end of the world if it goes bad, but there's a lot of possibility,
Yeah.
and so I think that's a big mantra of mine.
Right. And maybe 25 years ago, it wouldn't have been as easy to take that risk, right?
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Listen, I grew up. Um, I didn't know at the time that we were poor because my parents did such a great job of it. We had one bathroom in the house, four kids. I slept with my brothers till they went to college, and we had two full beds. One got to sleep by himself. I got to sleep with the other one. And I still didn't realize that. I didn't realize that until my dad brought home government cheese. And I started thinking, why are we getting government cheese? Now, the one thing is I'm a small government guy. I don't want my government in my business and everything because I think they don't do things well, like healthcare and different things like that.
Sure.
But the government can make some damn good cheese. I'm just telling you. They do a
Yeah.
good job of They should stay in that business because it was some good cheese. I tell you that. But I didn't realize that we were poor until that moment. But
Yeah. Well, you know what? As you said, that's a tribute to your parents too, because
yeah,
obviously, you know, the deliverable was happiness, right?
right.
It didn't have to be fancy,
No,
to have it. Well, that's maybe a perfect segue to the next question I have for you, which is, the show is called Fingerprints on Success, and embedded in there, of course, is, talking about the impact that others have
mhm,
on the success of entrepreneurs. And we love to talk a little bit about mentors or people that when you reflect on your career and your businesses, you say, if it wasn't for this person or these
right.
persons, I might really not be where I am right now. So can you tell us, did you have any people like that in your life on this journey?
Yeah, many, many. Some stand out. I think my parents are the ones that stand out, and they were the least entrepreneur people that you would ever know. And but it wasn't about that. It was about how to treat people, how nice they were. When my dad passed away at his funeral, long line of people this guy wasn't a business guy. He worked at the VA hospital, but almost every one of them said to me, he was the nicest guy we knew. And I thought, that's success. When you're at your funeral and these people are saying, that's the nicest guy, that is success. So I think that I've taken that and with all my partners, I want my partners to feel I'm giving more, you know, than I have to. And so I get that from my parents. And but business wise, I have really two main ones, and one's a person, and one's part, and he's part of the thing that the founder of that. So the company that I think I wouldn't be here without is Fortune Management, and they're a management group that does healthcare. And I was there. I took my boards, and the day after I took my boards, we flew down to Atlanta, and it was 1990, and that's when it was forming, and it was founded by Tony Robbins and this group, Paul Bass, Bernie Stoltz, all these people, and so as a company, there's Brenda Kessler, Paul Bass, Bernie Stoltz, like they've molded me to who I am. But it was all surrounded Tony Robbins, motivational, and just systems that they created, and they created at these seminars back in 1990 that I was at. And it was one of those things where I remember it like it was yesterday. I was walking through, I had on a blue blazer, a blue and red tie, striped tie. And Tony Robbins happened to have the exact same outfit on. And I didn't know at the time and everything, but I'm walking by, and this guy, if you know Tony Robbins, is this big 6'7", real big guy. He just grabs me and he says, "What are you doing dressing like me?" I'm scared of that. But I learned some things. I said, "I'm just modeling you. I'm trying to be successful." And he said, got in my face, said, "Good answer." And I'm like, oh my God. But his teachings and me watching all that stuff created like possibility for me, and like what was possible, and how never to take no for an answer, and there's always another possibility. So fast forward this 30 some years later, I have an opportunity through another vendor to send Tony and his wife some oral care, our mouthwash. And in that, I put a little note, and I kind of went over the story, and I said, "Listen, I know you don't know who I am." And I said, "But you've been such an impact on my life, along with Fortune Management and Tony and Brenda and Bernie." And I said, it's you don't realize what an impact you've done. And I've told him a little bit about our charities and my businesses and different things. Put down a lever, and never know, if he would ever get it. And I thought, if I get it, maybe I'll hear it through those guys. One day I get a voicemail, and I listen to it, and it's Tony Robbins. He's Dr. Bob, and he's like, "I got your stuff. I got your letter." He goes, "I just want to tell you," and that's the most that's the most cherished voicemail. Like, I have it saved, and I'm like, this was my mentor, and he's like, "It sounds like you really took good notes and followed through," and that. So he was like my mentor, and to have a voicemail from him was really great. And then, like I said, Fortune Management, which I'm still part of today, I have just a super great coach, Ty Azinger. Ty is just. I think that's the other thing. I think all of us should have a coach. You think, well, don't you know it all? Well, no, don't. And so I have a great coach with him, and we hit it off. And every month I look forward to and we talk for an hour, and it seems like we could do 4 hours. and he makes me believe in myself more than maybe I do. And he's the one that he's told me, he said, Bob, you have 1,000 ideas every year, I'm sure. He said 997 of them are just terrible. He said, but three of them could change the world. And
Yeah.
he said, those are the ones that you want to act upon. And he just, and so it's like, I see a history, and I see, and I hate to single out people because there's so many people. And my partner, who's still my partner, he's retired, but he's still my partner, that I still send checks to every month, even though he doesn't do anything in the business, because I wouldn't be here without him and investing in the fortune management and all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of people along that way to get there, and I'm very thankful for all of
Yeah.
them.
Well, it sounds like too, like you opened up your mind and your soul, so to speak, to you have to be receptive to being mentored, right? You have to have that mentality that, I'm not always the smartest guy in the room. There's a lot of other
Absolutely.
people. And I happen to, as you know Ty Aldinger as well. And, he would actually be a great guest on this show as a former
Oh, he would.
captain of a
Yeah.
United States Navy aircraft carrier. Pretty cool guy. So talk a little bit about this. You've had a lot of people, as you said, throughout your life that have been great mentors, coaches, advisors. What kind of things do you do? And I know you do a lot. What kind of things do you do to kind of pay it forward now that you're in the position you are, to help other people on their journey?
Well, what I do is, Fortune has a lot of coaches out there, and sometimes they'll say, will you talk to this guy, and will you talk to them? And so I do that. And just lately I've been speaking. I've been going out, and got talk in Las Vegas here. And it's all about kind of what we're talking about today, on because a lot of people, I put down the handpiece, the drill, age 38. And a lot of people want to do that. They want to, and so I go out and talk to them. And then I say, hey, listen, if you need someone to talk to, and I do it all the time. And I think, and I don't charge for it. I'm just, what I'm trying to do is motivate them to be, what they could do, or maybe what they don't want to do, because there's different challenges to, what we do here. And but I also, with my teams, I mean, we try to train leadership, and I think I have great leaders. And I have a house in Florida, and when I go to Florida, I still work, but they are the ones that are like, they're doing it. And all I know is, I think it was July, or maybe it was June. I spent the whole month in Florida, and we had our highest month ever. So maybe I'm just getting in the way. You know what I mean? So I think training leaders to be able to replace you, and trusting them. I think that's very big. Not that having, between all the businesses, we probably have 140 some employees. It's challenging. It's in today's market, it's even more challenging. I heard something that John Maxwell, who's another guy I love listening to, is said something. He said, "You know what my greatest asset is?" He said, "It's my people in my business." He said, "You know what my biggest challenge is? It's the
Yeah,
people.
my people.
It's the people in my business." And I think, God, you couldn't have said more than that. I couldn't do what I do without them.
Yeah.
But it is challenge. And I think the more that people want to take responsibility from people. I don't agree with that. I think the more responsibility you give them, the better people you'll have. So
I think that's there's a lot of wisdom there. So for our business owners and entrepreneurs out there that are listening, what's for lack of a better word, a description, a current event topic, or something that's on your mind that you think you're either navigating right now or you think is going to have to be navigated that that you see as kind of an emerging issue or challenge out there that our entrepreneurs that are listening should be ready for?
Well, it's the COVID thing, and when I say it's the COVID thing, it's I think life changed with COVID, and life changed with COVID, and not what COVID did to our health, but what COVID did to our business and our people's mind. And so before COVID, I think we never had a challenge hiring people or having at least resumes out there to hire. I think after COVID, we do have a challenge. I think everyone's having a challenge, like no matter what business you're in, I think you're having a challenge. You're having a people problem, and that you're not having enough people, or maybe like for us, we don't lose people to other dental practices, but we lose them to, we have a big FBI center. We lose them to the FBI or West Virginia University, and who can just pay more, have better benefits, all that kind of stuff. And so it's a challenge. And so you have to adapt. You can't just go, well, this is a challenge, so I just going to go home and cry about it. No, you have to do something. So what we did back in April of last year, we were always worked 5 days a week. Since it's been 50 years since we've had this business. I always didn't own it, but we always work 5 days a week. So I said to my staff, I got a plan. And they thought, this is crazy. This is stupid, but I could see people got this experience from COVID of being home.
Mm.
They liked it, and so I said, how do I get more work-life balance? So what we did is we now work in all my businesses, except my airplane business, which is a whole different world, We work Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. We're off Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. And then the next week, we work Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So twice a month, they have a 4-day weekend. And I put this caveat to all, when I present this to my staff, and I said, I have the right to change this if this tanks our business.
Right.
So I didn't want to tap, but I think this will help people. I think they'll get happier. It's been the best decision I ever made. I have happier people. Production has went from this to this. I expected, I think, if we just keep even, if we could just keep even, it's not, it's increased. So we've done more dentistry than we have ever previously, and work less time, and happier people. I attract more people. Who wouldn't want to have 2 4-day weekends every month? So I did that for my current employees as not like a business. I just hope I survived it, right? This, but I just felt it like we've got to do something, because you really can't do remote home dentistry. You know what I mean? You have to actually be there, right? So this has really worked for us, and it's done it in OraCare, and we do it in our management office. Everyone does it, and they absolutely love it, and I just got happier people and more productive, believe it or not. So I think you have to adapt to the times. I think, and I think that's right now more important to the people that I want to be on my team than the financial or benefits or anything. And I think it came from COVID, and that's we gave them.
Yeah.
All of a sudden you can stay home, and they go, I really like this staying home thing, so.
Yeah. Well, that's powerful and unique. And I'm sure that our listeners, who are entrepreneurs and closely held business owners, that's going to give some food for thought. As you said, some things, have to be done from a location, so to speak. But What a great thing. I mean, I know a lot of people always say, right, that culture will eat strategy for breakfast, I think is the line. And, that's unique to your culture. So very interesting. So, one of the things I always like to ask everyone, and we're getting down towards the last couple questions in our interview here, but I always love to talk to people when they've reached a certain level of success. And as you said, you're never going to retire and you still have all these motivations, but you get to a point where it's obviously not about dollars. There's way more to it than that. What is the why behind, you know, what you do every day? What makes you stay motivated and kind of when you think back, what's the thing driving you? Some people you know, uh, say it's, maybe it's like they, I know I tell people all the time, like I love being a hero to other people. That gets me excited. What's the why behind what you do?
I'm a builder. I like to build, whether it's a house, a building, company, people. I love the process. I love taking, I'm working on something and we have something that was just presented to this, probably the number one company in all of dentistry. And it's an original idea that we've had. We do it in our offices. And I just heard they're very interested. Like they're putting it in a test market and they're going for it. I don't, I'm not thinking how much money can I make from this? I'm thinking these people are all of a sudden excited about a little old idea that we had in here in little old West Virginia. That's what motivates. That's what gets me going. Like, wow, like this is a multi-billion-dollar company and an idea that we had there. So that like really jazzes me, like that gets me up in the morning. I have 4 or 5 projects I'm working on, some of them local, some of them national, some of them international. They're all different. They're not all in the same field. Some of them will succeed, some of them will be stupid and we'll might lose some money on, but I'm okay with that because I know that helps me be a better CEO for every company that I have because I'm happy. You want your CEO happy and motivating and everything like that. So that makes me happy that I am now I love the building. I even like the implementation of it and going for it. But once it's running, I like other people to do that. Like once it's up and going, I'd be happy to hand it off to somebody else and say, you keep it going. But I like those two parts. And I think that's what gets, and then what I'm worried about is that if I retire, what am I going to build? And like I said, I'm a high school basketball coach. I love that. I love the competition. I love practice because we're building those kids to be better basketball players. So I think if you looked at my whole life, that's what motivates me. I'm a builder. I've recognized that I'm a builder, and I've recognized that that makes me happy. And it's not always the money at the end of the day. It's I think the money's the scorecard.
Sure.
Am I doing well? Am I doing?
Yeah,
But I
it's a
really,
measuring stick. It's just
yeah, it's
part
amazing.
of measuring.
Yeah, but it's not the thing that is the motivating factor. And I have some people that are on my team that this that hopefully this deal goes through. But I've actually given them ownership of the part of this company, which that excites me. You know what I mean? Because not only do they, they work here, but now they have something that they're excited about because it's their company. So it's really exciting. That stuff excites me very much as the building part of it. So
Well, look, everybody loves to win, and when you win together too,
oh
that's a
yeah,
lot of fun, right?
yeah.
So,
And I think given for them to understand the ownership and what you have to go through and that only makes them better in my management company and understanding, what all has to happen. So it's good all the way around.
Well, I think that with that answer, I think it's a perfect place to call it a wrap, call it a day. And Dr. Bob Martino, I want to thank you. I really appreciate you. Thanks for coming on the show. I'm sure our listeners and entrepreneurs are going to be really excited when they hear this episode. And I just can't thank you enough for taking the time to be with us today.
Hey, I loved it. Always love talking to you, Bill. It's great.
Thanks, Bob. Take care now.
Thanks. All right.